And welcome to the 6th episode of Funk Podcast, a game development podcast by game developers. I'm Bradley Toliver, and with me is Sean Noonan.
Hi, I'm Sean Noonan, a freelance game and level designer, currently lead designer on Sentry.
And I'm an amateur hack fraud modder working on a Half-Life 2 mod called Inhuman, which will be coming out hopefully in about a month or two, depends. So today we're going to be talking, I think, a bit more about news than usual, but less news, more conference-related stuff, because we've got Gamescom, but more importantly, we got EEK3. So, Gamescom, I kind of hated this one. How are you feeling about it?
I don't know, hate's a bit of a strong word for it, but I've been a bit apathetic towards a lot of this sort of stuff in the last few years.
Yeah.
I don't really need to be hyped by stuff, so it's probably not for me. I usually know what I'm going to want, because I'm very rarely surprised by anything anymore. That's not a terribly bad thing, it's just the nature of having been playing games for over for most of my life at this point, and working in games. He
didn't want to say how old he is.
And working in games for, let's say, 15 years officially.
Yeah, there's this great clip you linked me of Jeff Gertzman reacting to a Lords of the Fallen reboot trailer with fucking Mother just like blasting through it, and it's just like,
yeah,
I feel. Am I wrong? I feel like for a bit it felt like we had marketing like figured out for games. Like I feel like the mid 2010s. I don't remember E3 making me like cringe out of my skin or anything. I don't know. It almost feels like we've taken like a step back, and I don't know who to blame.
Well, the audience in some ways, because
maybe
marketing only works if it works. Like that they only take a certain approach if it actually sticks. If something doesn't stick, they don't keep just pitching the same thing. They'll change their approach. So it obviously does work to some measurable degree, because they don't do anything without following metrics. Most marketing approaches and trailers and things, they're all based on something that's measurable.
Yeah, of course.
Within bigger companies. Obviously, we're talking about Gamescom. If we were talking about EEK3 at this point, that would be very different.
So I guess I'll ask: was there anything at Gamescom that had you interested?
I think Lies of P looked cool.
Yeah, that really took me off guard.
Yeah, because I'd heard separately that there was like a Pinocchio thing going to be there.
Yeah,
and then I saw it, and I think I was speaking to you at the time, and it sort of reminded me of a pitch that was going around for like a steampunk crackdown back in the day.
Yeah.
Which has sort of always been sitting in the back of my brain. It sort of reminded me of that, although that's obviously not an open world game. Lies of P's it looks a hell of a lot like Bloodborne, which isn't a bad thing, really.
Yeah, because apparently we're still not getting Bloodborne on PC anytime soon, or even on PlayStation 5 with better frame rate.
Yeah. I think there's enough space for more of those types of games. I know sometimes when a certain genre gets popular, you get this issue where people just start churning them out left, right, and center, and I don't think we're really getting that with Souls-like. So, I mean, there's obviously a few, but they're all different enough to kind of please the audience.
Yeah, no, definitely. I feel like it's like we had some people kind of try to do it, and it feels like Neo was the only one that kind of stuck with people. Like, there's others that I'm sure people like, but I feel like out of all the ones where it's like, I feel like I remember that name, and it's like, something that got a sequel and all that. Or again, Lords of the Fallen, how's that getting I don't know. It's like once you got an IP, even when it's like failed, you're like, let's just use the name. We got Prey as the most extreme example.
Yeah.
But yeah, I heard Jeff say Souls-like Pinocchio, and full disclosure for the audience, I usually don't watch these things live. I usually find them miserable either way to sit through all the way. So usually if I'm watching it quote unquote live, what I'm doing is I'm playing a game. And if I hear something mildly interesting, I'll alt tab and see what it is. And so I hear that, and I'm like, "Excuse me, what?" So I slam that alt tab, and I'm like, "All right, what the fuck is this?" and I see like discount Timothy Chalamet fucking standing there in like Bloodborne world, and I wanted to hate it. Like everything felt like I should hate it, but I was so mesmerized, and I couldn't help but think this kind of looks more interesting to me than Elden Ring ever did. Because like I was getting more Souls vibes from Elden Ring, and I guess I could get into like balancing issues I have with those games in another podcast. But I was like, I want more Bloodborne and less Dark Souls, if that makes sense. And here I'm like, oh shit.
It kind of reminded me of a past E3 where there were quite a few games where the protagonist had a strange arm. I don't know if you remember that year.
Oh yeah, Devil May Cry 5 paving the way.
There was a bunch of them. Like I'd probably mix them all up if I was trying to remember them. But stuff like Dark Sector, and then there's obviously the famous Bionic Commando where your arm is your wife.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Some other stuff. But yeah, it was quite interesting to see that was kind of a. It seems to be quite a Japanese trope, actually. I've noticed to have like a strange arm.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's either possessed or has some special power.
Maybe because like it lets your protagonist be like really strong or crazy without having to like be buff, and it's like a design element you can possibly turn on or off. That's
a pretty good point. That's probably got something to do with it.
Yeah. Like Nero DMC, he can still be kind of, on the skinnier end, but he's got this big fuck off arm that just like comes out whenever he needs it.
Yeah.
And, it's great. I love it. Oh man, I'm sorry. The wife is an arm thing. Like, like you touched my brain directly for a second. Like I felt my mind touch the void. Yeah, I think that was most exciting. I feel like there's like reveals that I'm supposed to be remembering that I'm just like not.
Yeah, it was quite forgettable for me.
Yeah, like I remember like there was like a Dune trailer, and like I was like, whatever this is about to either be really interesting or really boring, depending on what they say it is. And it's like MMO, and I'm like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Sorry to all MMO fans.
I know there's an audience for that, but
for sure,
not me.
Yeah, I'd have to see how they do the combat, because the thing with like Dune is it's all like a world where you can't really use like guns, like it's all like melee stuff, and I'm like, well, like how does that play out here, because you don't really have like as much room for like your like your mages or whatever, unless you're gonna have like a bunch of people playing as like the Bene Gesserit. I don't even know if you know anything about Dune.
I'm one of the few people who liked the David Lynch film.
Oh, okay, so you basically, yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really look at that universe and think MMO, but I guess I don't look at most universes and think MMO.
They could have used the IP to make another good RTS again,
Yeah, RTS or like some kind of cool action game. I feel like I'd be down for like a Dune, like Assassin's Creed kind of thing. You know what I mean? Where it's like, very melee focused. You gotta get in close to kill dudes. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of done with that stuff.
I mean, I don't play Assassin's Creed. I'm just saying.
I don't mean Assassin's Creed specifically. I mean, the sort of third-person action pseudo-open world game.
It's never going to stop. It's never stopping. It's like Sony's bread and butter.
Yeah, but there was one announced at Gamescom, actually. I've forgotten what it's called now. I've forgotten what it was. It didn't impact me anyway.
They did show off Callisto Protocol, which I feel like I've seen enough of at this point.
Yeah.
It's in this weird place where I feel like I'm more excited for it than like this Dead Space reboot, because it kind of looks more like what I've been looking for from the genre, and this kind of goes to like the balancing talk I want to get into later, where it's like I feel like Dead Space is kind of a weirdly balanced game where every entry in the series, it feels like they kind of up the enemy speed a bit, and it kind of forced them to make every gun kind of mostly do the same job. Like if your gun doesn't kind of stun enemies, it doesn't generally do a good job cutting their limbs off.
Yeah, it's
probably not like a really good, it's not going to be a gun you want to use. But like this game, it looks like the enemies are a little bit more, stompy rather than like in a full-on sprint. I'm hoping like you have different kinds of like damage types you can actually apply to stuff. I'm not super into the actual like style. I don't love the look of the enemies. They just kind of feel like your typical like mutant dude, and your character feels like he's straight out of like. There used to be this meme that would go around of all the straight white male protagonists that were in every single one of these action shooters.
Yeah.
And it was just like the same looking gruff white dude, and I feel like you could just put that guy right in there.
Yeah, he just looked like imagine a game like Days Gone. I don't know if you remember that game.
Oh man, yeah.
Imagine a game like that, had a tacked on 2-player mode. The second player would be the lead character from Callisto Protocol.
Yeah.
Yeah, just really, really generic stuff. And completely uninspired main character either. It's a shame as well, because it's an opportunity to, do something interesting, I think. But yeah, they haven't.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe they will. Maybe it'll be a customizable character or something.
Yeah.
Who knows? But seems unlikely.
Yeah, it's the thing I like about like Dead Space is once you put a helmet on them, I feel like you can kind of get away with more. Like the audience can kind of like slot themselves onto the character.
Yeah, totally.
And it's like, yeah, it's that's the thing I do like about Dead Space is I don't really feel like Isaac Clarke. I feel like the guy in the suit until he starts taking it off every 5 seconds. But
Yeah, I thought the demo was pretty cool though. The one they shown like.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's always a little bit strange when you're watching a developer play a game like that and try and show them on the back foot kind of thing, even though obviously the developer knows what's going on and they're trying to sort of engineer very specific scenarios. There was a bit where the players are surrounded by like these, I don't even know what they are, like alien monster mutant things.
Yeah.
And the spine of a fan that's sort of spinning around and dicing stuff up.
Yeah.
And he dices one of the dudes up, and then the others he sort of just struggles with. It's like, why don't you just dice that one up as well, and that one as well, and then just keep doing that?
Yeah, I am a little curious.
Like, you could see that the player was sort of struggling to try and not do the most optimal approach that would just be the same thing every time, and trying to make it look a bit more interesting, I suppose. That's kind of how it came across. It was like me looking behind the curtain a little bit there. Yeah, it was a bit strange because it did take me out of the video a little bit because I was thinking that.
Yeah, but I don't know. Who knows? Maybe their ability to like throw guys like on a limited resource that just wasn't being shown very well. I don't know.
Potentially, yeah.
But you know what I will give the game is the protagonist isn't opening his goddamn mouth every 5 seconds, which is maybe something I should have made a little bit more clear when I was talking about what annoys me with game marketing. And it's kind of it's infecting games itself now. It's like game marketing used to have a lot of these like bits of reveals where like the character would just like not shut up.
Mm-hmm.
It's like really, really blatant in I think like the first one that really comes to my mind is the latest Horizon game, where like she is not giving the player information in that like reveal trailer. She's just talking. It's just every 5 seconds she's got to be like, "Whoa, that was a close one. Whoa, I better get in the water." It's like it doesn't feel like it's tutorializing or steering the player. It's just like a lot of whoa, 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 and there's some new, I think, shooter from Arcane or somebody where it's like a killing vampires or something. And again, like the character is just, oh gee, oh Willikers, oh boy, every like 5 seconds while they have like a fucking purple shotgun with like some doodad hanging off of it. I'm supposed to believe they're also taking this situation seriously. And now we've got like a Rick and Morty game. It's not Rick and Morty the game, but it's from just Roiland.
May as well be.
And you've got a gun who literally won't stop talking, and then like the boss is also talking at you, and I'm just like, oh, I don't want to hate on people who enjoy that kind of comedy or whatever, but it's like I need my alone time in my brain when I play games, and I feel like when you talk at me like this, I don't get that alone time. I don't get that escapism.
Did you watch the uncut clip from that game?
Yeah, I watched like I think 5 or 10 minutes of it, and I was just like, I don't know. It's like it looks like if you just cut it to like pure gameplay, it kind of looks like something I might be into. Where it's like this kind of wacky, colorful game. You're hopping all over the place. You actually have to like dodge things and use different abilities to do things. Like that's on paper really exciting, but like the presentation, it's just not my thing. It's just not.
Yeah, I mean, visually, it's quite nice.
Yeah, it definitely has a nice style.
It's more like the overall wrapping of that humor is just sort of non-stop, and I know there is an audience for that, and they'll probably love it. But I think the full 25-minute clip works better than just showing the boss fight out of context like they did, which is kind of a bold move because you're basically hoping that people really, really love that humor. Otherwise, there's nothing else. It's like a very simple boss fight with quite... because all it's really doing is it's showing the pistol in the player's right hand.
Yeah.
That's basically sort of shouting stuff at you. The knife in the left hand, which is what you use to sort of tether and move around this like ant boss thing. And she's got this weird mix where it sounds like she's just standing next to you through the whole fight. rather than jumping around and shooting, going under the acid stuff.
She's got real Bane from Dark Knight Rises mixing going on.
Yeah, it's very odd. And yeah, like the 25-minute video was better. There's a game that recently got I think it's just come out of early access or something called is it called ADACA? ACA? Oh, it's ACA.
I'm gonna have to leave you out here. I'm sorry.
It's called ADACA or something. It's basically Half-Life 2, but using, as far as I can tell, using the low poly asset pack that's been on, Unity and UE4.
You're gonna force me to look this up on our break. What? I've not heard of this.
Yeah. Have a look. It's essentially a sort of low poly Half-Life 2, and I watched some videos of it quite recently, and I was quite interested in it because it plays in a way that Half-Life 2 plays that you don't really get in games anymore, and that High on Life game sort of was like that as well.
Yeah, you got a point there. Yeah.
If you strip out all of that, the over-the-top humor and the fact that there's a lot of like gags in it, especially dialogue-based gags, it sort of plays like games that don't exist anymore, and I kind of like that. That's why when I sent you the link to it earlier, I mentioned that I think this is probably the perfect Game Pass game. A linear sort of shooter, maybe there's some forks in the road or something, but mostly linear sort of old school shooter in a way.
Yeah, definitely. I'm honestly trying to think, is there anything else revealed at Gamescom that you care about? I feel bad. I'm like, I had a list up somewhere and I lost it, and I'm just like, I don't know if anyone really cares. This is kind of like the thing. I feel like it kind of came and went. There was a game shown at Gamescom, but I don't think we really need to get into all of that.
Yeah, I really don't know. Like, there wasn't really a huge amount that I came away from. Like, it really was just like oddly High on Life, Lies of P, and the Lords of the Fallen because of the trailer being ridiculous.
All right, then moving on. I guess we could get into like what we've been kind of working on lately. So I'm in the polishing phase of my project, Inhuman. So I'm mostly just getting like the last few little level bits, like playing the way I want and looking better, and also kind of examining if there's anything left with like kind of the way the game plays that needs to be tweaked. How are you feeling so far with your work?
Right now, I'm kind of all over the place. Mostly working on UI. The whole, well, I say UI, I mean UX. I mean the whole flow of the game, like how you start the game, how you play through a mission, and how you exit that mission, and how you get subsequent ones.
So how are you feeling like with like the moment-to-moment gameplay, I guess is my question.
Okay, so yeah, the moment-to-moment stuff. I mean, that is actually affected by the UX stuff because, there's a lot of things like we have these dispensers on the wall that you can kind of place and you have to use them. So that obviously means I have to kind of come up with a visual language for how they work and whether or not there's a prompt that is customized to the keyboard and all that kind of stuff. So I've got to kind of work out all those things. But the combat's starting to come together quite well. We've had to re-review a bunch of different archetypes just as the game's been evolving. So some of the first stuff to go in the game is kind of feeling a bit creaky and old now. So we're kind of having to rework that. Some visual stuff as well. It's been just jumping between different issues at the moment. There's no real specific focus outside of UX because we're just sort of firefighting to try and get a demo together. Essentially a vertical slice.
Right.
So we can kind of find what the best aspects of the game are and like sort of focus on those and then maybe like focus less on the other stuff. Once the game comes together, you'll kind of have a better idea overall.
Yeah, let me ask you some questions then, because I'm curious. Because you've been on pretty much every end of game development at this point. You've been there for like the early concept stuff. You're working on something that's like still pretty work in progress. You've shipped a decent number of titles. When do you think your game balancing is like done? Like, do you think like if for any project you were working on, you're given like another 6 months or 3 months, whatever, do you think you go back to trying to like tweak the balance on things, or do you think you just kind of like stick with what you've solidified? Like, well, when do you decide to make that decision?
Balance happens so close to the end, it's not even funny. Sometimes it can be worrying that things don't feel right because you're going through so much of the project where things just feel like this should be easier or this doesn't feel right, like it can sometimes come really late. Like last project I was on, Gears Tactics, the balance in that was just all over the place throughout the project. It just kept changing. The focus was always changing because we were still trying to work out what the game was. That's kind of the problem with what's essentially a new IP. You're always going to get problems like that because you're not building upon something that already exists. I know the Gears universe exists, but that game specifically didn't.
Yeah, the strategy, turn-based strategy version, very new thing. So I guess, like, when do you feel like you've hit that point where you're like, oh, this is actually like what I wanted? Is there like sort of like a design doc where you look back or you write up maybe towards the end where you're like, okay, this is like our mission statement. This is like the gameplay loop we want. Are we getting that loop? Or, kind of walk me through it. I'm curious.
Documents are basically irrelevant towards the end of the project, I found. Smaller content ones are good for QA to kind of use as guidelines, but usually they're out of date. And that's happened in all studios I've worked at. It's usually down to reviews with stakeholders. So everyone gets together, looks at the build and reviews it, gives feedback. Tasks are built from there. And just that's pretty much how the game comes together at the end. Everyone needs to see the game being played. Everyone playing the game would be useful. That's not always a reality. But yeah, it's usually a lot of people in a room watching somebody play the game, somebody fresh, hopefully, and then seeing if they're getting the experience that each of the individual stakeholders wants.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I'm working towards a build for a bunch of new players to test out like the kind of tutorial elements and all that stuff. So yeah, I guess that's a good thing to keep in mind, that I don't need to panic too bad.
No.
I just worry that like if there's something I end up not liking, it's gonna like make me want to delay release further, but I guess we'll see. I guess it's like, I know the game functions the way I want it to. It's just sort of like, is the player getting the right experience out of that? But yeah, that's definitely useful to keep in mind. I'm kind of curious what else I should be asking here. I guess there's like lots of little things when you're working on a project like this. So I guess for anyone who doesn't know, it's a Half-Life 2 project where basically everything's been kind of like touched up or redone. The AI acts pretty different. The weapons have all been like rebalanced. So I'm going for like a very intentional kind of game is the way I always put it. Like I want the player to think about what they're doing. They want to position themselves in better places to get the drop on the enemy. They want to, be able to get the most out of whatever weapon they're trying to use at a certain range, rather than just kind of, doing whatever and running towards their enemy, which I think is kind of an issue in Half-Life 2. So I guess one of the big things I'm like dealing with lately is I'm not sure how I feel about like the time to kill, because there's like a weird thing that happens where like if you get too good at your game, which you will if you're a developer, you're the one who's most comfortable with it. There's like parts that can feel like they're too easy, even though they're not necessarily too easy for like new players. And that new player experience is arguably far more important. But I still want the game to have legs, like I want the game to push back the right amount on like a replay. And I'm not sure how to get like that balance when it comes to like time to kill, for instance. So like simple example being like the player starts with a pistol, right? And if you're good at landing headshots, you can kill your average starting grunt dude pretty easily. But if you're not, it would theoretically be pretty tedious, especially like with damage scaling and all that. And I was thinking, okay, well, if I want to like change the time to kill to be like a little slower for like my sake, if I'm finding it too easy to just kind of like shoot them before they get a chance to show off what they can do, I would have to like raise their health, which would only kind of mitigate how fast they die from headshots, which is a 2x multiplier. But it would really hurt like body shot damage. Like if players are having trouble landing those headshots, they're gonna really be taking their time killing dudes to a point where they might start to complain about it. And it's kind of, I don't know. It's bothering me.
That's where you need testers, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't know if you have any preferences though, like where you fall on that, like when it comes to like shooter time to kill stuff. I know you've told me you don't really love bullet sponge enemies.
Yeah, so for me it depends on the experience of the game that you want to give, right? Like some games you do want things to be a bit spongier. The game I'm working on now, Sentry, the enemies will be spongier than I'm usually comfortable with in a shooter. Because they need to be for the type of game it is. Combat doesn't need to be just the player's influence. The combat comes from what the players added to the level as well. So when they place turrets and traps and stuff like that.
Yeah, that must be a nightmare.
All of those deployables and stuff will be ways that players will play differently. It's not like they'll all have to play that way. It will make your life easier. Well, probably, I'm assuming we'll have some kind of challenges where if you manage to finish a level without deployables, you'll get some kind of bonus, maybe. It's different in this game because of that. Like, because we have deployables, we need to have slightly higher time to kill. Otherwise, they would be irrelevant. Whereas when I'm playing something more like I don't know, an old school shooter, that's the sort of thing where I would like almost set amount of hits per enemy, like based on the weapon and stuff. It's the sort of thing I want the player to learn. And then when you go to more realistic stuff, that's where you start like, enemies should be dead fast because, it's realistic.
Yeah, I'm in a weird place because it's like I'm trying to create, I guess we could call it the modern equivalent of the Half-Life 1 combat loop, because a lot of people, and I think rightly so, gesture towards the soldiers in Half-Life 1 being like a lot tougher and like more interesting to fight than something like the Half-Life 2 Combine.
Yeah.
But I think a big part of that is the fact that like they're tanky and, when you shoot at them, they don't stop shooting. They might run away after they're done shooting, but like they don't stop shooting in that moment. And, I see people praise that, but I've also seen people bounce off of it completely. Like, I think you can see that in the No Clip documentary where it's like they're talking about the game being like a little dated or something. Like a dude's just like unloading on a soldier with like an MP5 and the soldier's just like shooting back and they're both just like losing health until one dies.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was in the No Clip doc. But I've definitely seen stuff like that where people are like, yeah, Half-Life's pretty good, but I don't know, combat's kind of clunky. Because like the game did not demand that they learn there's a better way to beat those soldiers. Because yeah, you can get through the game playing like that in a lot of instances. You will have a hard time later on, but I think that's an issue for players where it's like if they kind of get through the game playing badly for long enough, it's going to be rougher for them to kind of come to terms with, oh no, I need to get better once they get to like that midpoint. And so I've tried to avoid that. I really don't want players just trading fire with dudes and thinking like, oh, that's how the game works. And I'm trying to think, well, like how do I get that same experience without just like making them damage sponges, and two, I don't really have any budget to like get like new animations, so it's like figuring out ways for them to telegraph when the player's in danger is kind of, I guess, the other issue.
As soon as we went towards the route where we were allowing for the extra damage from deployables, it became quite obvious that we needed health bars, and it was something I really, really fought against internally. The rest of the team were okay with it. I hate the idea of health bars, but the game needs them. And it was one of those things where I really had to kind of...
Yeah, I would agree.
Get over myself to be able to actually get those in, because I just really didn't want to see them all over the screen. And we're going to do what we can to kind of minimize the noise. But they were needed to make that combat work. And as soon as they went in, with a few nice little treatments, like when the enemies are hit, it shows initially the actual cost of that hit, the damage applied, so it goes white for a second and then depletes, like a fighting game kind of thing. That sort of stuff is quite nice, so you get some like nice visual flair from things, but it was something that I sort of was really, really reluctant to add, but it made a huge difference when that went in. It meant things didn't feel frustrating to fight, because at first we had damage reactions to pretty much everything. Every time you shot an enemy, they'd react in some way, and then if you shot them again, they'd probably be dead. So it always felt really punchy and nice, but it wasn't really playing to the strengths of the game, because as soon as we needed these deployables in, the health had to go up, and you can't just keep making loads of these damage reactions.
Yeah, they just keep flinching and staggering.
Even if you were to do that, you're not going to get the same level of satisfaction from the kill itself, because you've had to stagger so many times to get there. So yeah, that was something we had to do. We had basically health bars solved our problems.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because it's like the player has kind of like they're kind of working towards the end of that bar. So like the way they kind of internalize it is different.
Yeah, and they can learn how fast certain weapons work on certain enemies and stuff.
Yeah. In this case, it's like I think I'm pretty happy with like how enemies look like when they flinch and how they react to damage. I almost wonder, would I be able to get away with them being a little tankier and like a little harder to kill? Like not just in terms of how much damage they take, but like how do they react to damage? Like do they kind of run away more in certain circumstances? I almost wonder if I'd feel better about turning that health up if they also had just like a couple more dramatic reactions to damage at like certain stages of their health or something like that kind of give the player like an indication of how well they're doing. Like if you kind of like headshot a guy and he's early on, maybe he like kind of cowers and runs away for a second, stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely something I'm going to be grappling with for a while.
Yeah, probably through to the end of the project, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, we're closing in on the end, and that'll be something interesting to talk about, because this is my first legitimate, like, ship thing. I mean, I guess it's not the whole project either. I have one other thing I shipped, but it felt very unfinished to me. I'm not happy with how it shipped. I don't feel like I had learned how to ship a game with it. It's more of like a coherent package. It's still like the first like half or 2/3 of like the entire, I guess you could say, story, but like it'll be, you know, a whole thing. Like if for whatever reason I had to completely step off of it, I'll be happy with what we have. And so it's definitely been interesting learning how to like ship a game. That's something I think we should probably talk about. Whenever I get it done, that definitely would be a good podcast episode.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. So EEK3, you wanna get into this EEK3 stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, so EEK3, I thought this was the best one so far. I've watched all of them. The others, I kind of skimmed through a little bit more. I don't know if it was just the games. I feel like the games definitely had a big part of it. I'm not the biggest fan of the actual in-between bits. They're cute, like I get it, but I'm not the biggest fan, but at least they feel genuine, and you know what? The whole thing takes a hell of a lot less time than the goddamn Jeff Awards or Jeff Con or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
So I got a whole list of stuff I found interesting. I don't know if you did. I don't want to name names necessarily because I don't want to make anyone feel bad, but there was like a couple where it felt like they're taking themselves deadly seriously, but like they still look like something that was probably going to be able to run at like 60 frames per second on a Nintendo 64. You know? And I was just like, I'm not feeling it there, but there's some real gems in there. Mother of Many really had my eyes going wide, big time. It starts with, pretty like stylized kind of like story opener thing. You see like some farming gameplay. It looks like kind of, you got like anthro mice stuff, which is like, you know, it's not really my thing. But you know, it looked good. And then he fucking, like slices someone's neck, like another rat person's neck open with a scythe, and the game like explodes into a bullet hell. It's maybe the nuttiest trailer I've ever fucking seen in years. Like since like Death Stranding showed off like the World War II combat.
Yeah,
it's been a while since I've been so confused and so enraptured what was going on screen.
I think I said at the time it went from Don't Starve to Devil Daggers in about a second.
Yeah.
It was very odd.
Yeah, I have so many questions. I'm like, is the bullet hell is it like one pillar of the gameplay? Is it like the end result of the gameplay? Do you just do a monotonous farming game until you get fucking sick of it? I'm so curious because like it opened with just like this unprompted rat murder. It's fucking wild though. I think you said you know one of the developers of a fishing game that they showed off, right? The Secrets Under Lake Ophelia or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I do spend some time in those communities, and the developer of that game, Bryce, sent me a build of their previous game, which I sort of tested and gave feedback on and stuff. So I was quite curious to see what their next thing was, because their previous thing also involved very basic fishing, but it had fishing in it. So yeah, I was quite curious to see what that was. And yeah, it looked quite different, which was one of the things I liked about this EEK3 was that I think previously, and in the community in general, there's been a real focus on trying to rebuild PT from different developers.
Yeah.
I get why, and I know that it can kind of gather a lot of enthusiastic people about like being able to recreate something cool like that. But a lot of it can be a bit too on the nose, and it's felt a lot of the time that those games, they kind of become the thing that everyone's kind of striving for. So everything's always this first-person pseudo walking sim where weird things will happen every time you sort of look away from something. And I think those things are fun. It's just in the past it's felt a bit overbearing that's been the focus. Maybe that's just my perception of it, but it felt this time that people were trying different things, like that you saw a couple of sort of platformers. There was that one Zelda-like that had bees in it or something.
Yeah, that made me really uncomfortable. I had notes for anything that was even mildly interesting. You know, like my first note being at is like, the legs make me uncomfortable. I was really confused what the opener really had to do with the rest of the game, but it was just, yeah, it looks cute. I don't know if I'd ever really play it, but like, it looks cute. The legs make me uncomfortable. I don't know what to say. Just
same for me. I don't know if I play it, but I'm glad that it's being made, and I'm glad that people are making different things.
Yeah.
There were quite a few games like that, which was nice to see. You know, people doing different things.
You know what my favorite thing is there was a lot of games where, like with Mother of Many, where I had questions. Where it's like, I don't really feel that with modern games anymore. I feel like if I'm sick of your game in like 10 seconds from like a Gamescom reveal, it's doomed. Like, I'm just like, I know what it is. It's a fucking... Oh, it's a looter shooter. Oh, it's like a third person. What? Like, your game's not going to surprise me. Where, like, something like Scissors in Hell, where, like, you see, like, these weird, like, you see, like, 3D, like, I think fish or whatever, and, like, some other low poly renders of things, and then suddenly there's, like, a bunch of crazy card game RPG stuff going on, and it stops, and I'm like, wait, what is this game? I don't know what the fuck Gob is supposed to be, but... It's got so much meme power. Everyone was just like, Gob in chat. And I was like, yeah, how can you not? Like, it's this weird, like, twitchy, like, Sonic the Fish thing. Like, just walking around. And I'm like, I need more. I need more of Gob. What was another one? There was, like, another game that was, like, really fucking with my head. Oh, yeah, Ghost Lore, where, I've probably mentioned in previous podcasts, I actually don't play a lot of new games. I play a lot of games for a long period of time. So, like, I've been playing Risk of Rain 2 for an ungodly number of hours, and I'm not going to stop. I'm not done with that game yet. I got a bunch of mods for it. I'm still going. So I see this game called Ghost Lore, if I remember the name right, where it looks like kind of like a top-down-y, not exactly top-down, but like that Diablo kind of like look, action RPG thing, which is like my jam, especially if it's like got a lot of deep stuff going on with it. But the UI was giving me, like, anxiety, and I couldn't tell if that was on purpose or not. Like, there was so much shit on screen. I was just like, what am I looking at? What is going on here?
Yeah, I remember that one. That was like a Diablo, like...
Yeah. It had, like, kind of an anime aesthetic, but then, like, the UI looked like it's, I don't know, very lo-fi in, like, a way I found kind of grating, but I don't know, maybe it's something I'll be able to sink into. It's very interesting at the very least. One thing you pointed out you were really interested in that I was kind of confused by was that future reality game?
Yeah, just basically for the same reason that I was interested in that sort of Zelda B game thing. Just because it was something different at the event, and it means that community's sort of, you know, branching out into different things, which I think is a positive. So that's a sort of Wipeout-esque, well, sort of Wipeout mixed with Afterburner. It looked like there was a bit more going on than simply racing. I couldn't really tell. It was kind of a messy trailer.
The trailer was very strange. I feel like I was interested in the game in spite of the trailer.
Yeah.
I don't understand why they put so much shit on screen. I think they must have done like a focus test to find the most unreadable fonts imaginable. I saw something mentioning like machine learning AI, and I'm like, wait, is that like a joke or is that like real? I'm so... I don't know. I want you to sell me on your game, and I don't know if I'm sold on that game, but at least I'm interested. We're talking about it, so there's that, right?
Yeah.
I guess it's going to be a running theme through talking about EEK3 compared to other conventions. It's like there's games I want to talk about, there's games I want to look at. There's a lot of these games are getting demos, and we're probably going to try to do a stream, like going through at least the stuff we found most interesting.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Like Agent 64, that's another one that's got, I think it has a demo out, right? And it's coming with a built-in level editor, and it's built like those old old James Bond, GoldenEye games, Time Splitters, kind of stuff where you don't have a crosshair and your gun kind of aims, off center, like like you're lining up your shot from where the gun is pointing rather than anything in the UI side of things. And I'm curious how that feels with a mouse and keyboard because I've only ever played that on console.
I've tried it in the Xbox emulator. The Xbox 360 emulator for the GoldenEye remake, and it seemed to be fine. I guess the difference being you're probably aiming a lot faster than you're usually used to, and then fine-tuning on top of that. Kind of like, I don't know if you played any of the first-person games on the Wii. A little bit like that.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I'm definitely interested. It's a shooting experience that's like very much gone out of the way, and it's kind of funny because it's like there's no reason more games couldn't be like that. I wouldn't say it's a design flaw to not have like a crosshair, but it feels like people only do that when they're trying to make the game realistic. I don't know. I find it interesting because it's like when you take away, I think something is added when you take away perfect information sometimes, where it's like,
yeah, I agree completely.
Even if the player, like, you know, the player would objectively be able to land those headshots more easily if you gave them that perfect information. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're supposed to.
Yeah, I actually did this on the Super 1-1 challenge. The game never had a crosshair because the weapon fires an actual projectile in an arc. So you couldn't really have a normal, conventional crosshair. It would be pointless. It wouldn't actually tell you anything useful. And I brought on Risto to help me with some of the AI stuff. And he actually put a fully working crosshair in that actually like sort of mapped exactly where the arc was going to go and everything. I was like, nope, don't want it in. Take that out. Because it removed a lot from the game. It made it feel instantly more about performance, and the game isn't about that. It's about having fun and messing around.
Yeah.
That perfect information made the game feel worse, significantly in my eyes. Easy cut. But yeah, I do relate to that.
Yeah, it makes sense. So that's how I'm going to solve my headshot problem in Inhuman, is I'm just going to take the crosshair out. It's going to be perfect. I definitely won't get a lot of pushback on that. Yeah. Oh, yeah, speaking of shooters, we got Enchain, which there's been like an early access version of that out for a while.
Oh, yeah.
I'm waiting for that game to be done, because it's just the kind of game I want to play when it's like totally done. But whoever is working on that, they get it. That's the kind of dude where it's like, there's always like kind of the meme in game development circles of what we call the idea guy, where it's like, there's like a dude where it's like they have no idea how to make a game. They've never really realistically thought through like game design stuff. They just know they have like an idea and they want someone to like make it for them, you know, especially like in mod communities. It's very, very common. It's like, oh, what if we did this? And what if we did that? And, you know, who's going to do it? Not them. Enchain feels like someone who like had a lot of ideas and they did not give up. They were like, no, I'm actually going to do this fucking game. I want to make this crazy ass game where you're like pulling yourself all around the level with this like grappling hook. And all these different like mechanics you can use to like kind of play into each other for like your movement and your momentum and stuff. And it looks so crisp. It's so smooth. There's no guff. It's all the game.
Yeah, it was a highlight for me as well.
Yeah, when that comes out, I'm so ready to play it and throw as much money as they need towards them.
Yeah, it reminded me a little, not in gameplay, but it reminded me in its like sort of quality compared to the rest of the stuff in the show to a previous year. Was it previous? I can't remember the name of the game now. The game where you're climbing with the two pickaxes.
I know what you're talking about, but I also don't remember. Uh-oh.
I haven't picked that up yet. I think it might be in early access, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was kind of a highlight for me in one of the previous ones. It sort of stood out like that did to me.
It's what I'm looking for with these games, where it's like, presumably if you're doing lower res stuff, it's easier to do than if you were trying to make a game that looks like Death Stranding or fucking The Last of Us, right? Like you're bashing out those assets a lot quicker. So when I see games like that, what I'm hoping for is a focus on like the feeling of the game. Like, is everything snappy? Is everything responsive? You know, it's like opposite of Mario and Unreal Engine. I want Mario on the Nintendo 64, where the first thing they focused on was how good it feels to get Mario moving around the level. And that is what this game looks like. It's pure game feel, but in a good way. Where I was talking in a prior podcast about how I feel like a lot of games, they get sold on juice. This game's not trying to sell itself on juice. It's not like, wow, look how amazing every single shot looks. It's more like, look how amazing our gameplay loop looks. And that's really different than just like, wow, look at all the sparks flying every single time you shoot this shotgun. I'm so enthusiastic about this game.
Yeah, that's the side of the PlayStation 1 that I don't think people should be taking, you know, going back in time to the way things used to feel. That's something we shouldn't do.
Remember when things used to play like shit?
Yeah, we shouldn't do that. We should take the aesthetics, sure, and maybe not the aesthetics in a pure fashion, because I think even that can go a bit too far.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, like bringing those older aesthetics to like newer feels and gameplay is a really good idea, and I think it's where the games show best.
Yeah, there was a couple other like action-driven games that also looked interesting. I wasn't as sure about them. We had I believe it was called Nowhere. Apologies if I get any of these names wrong, because like a lot of these games have like odd names and often like weird font that like distracts the shit out of me. So I wouldn't be surprised if like one or two of these games I'm getting the name wrong because it was like the subtitle or something, you know?
Yeah.
I think it was called Nowhere though, where it was like this very, very grimy looking PlayStation 1 looking game where you're shooting like very odd looking cartoony enemies. The vibe of it I wasn't so into, but the actual gameplay looked at least snappy. We got Skull Chains, which also, that's a game I had big question marks over my head, where you're basically playing what looks like a dude, maybe like just like a head or a skull with like another skull on like a chain.
Yeah.
And you like whip it around to like hit things that are coming towards you, and you can like throw it and it'll like bounce around the level before you like catch it. So you can like use that to like kind of break through projectiles and stuff. And I found it interesting. It's another one of those games where it looks very much just built on like, here's a simple like gameplay loop, and it's like very readable, very obvious like how the game should play. I'm very curious what the replayability and like depth of it is like, because I don't know, when I look at a game like that, I hope it's striving for something like Downwell, where like Downwell is a pretty simple game, but there's just like a lot of little wrinkles that like make it really fun to just keep jumping back into and trying out different things. And I'm kind of hoping for that here, but I'm not so sure from what we saw.
It looked a little like it had those extrinsic motivators that Downwell has, like, you know, like when you get to the end of a well and you've got like the different upgrades to choose.
Yeah.
There was clearly that in there, which is obviously sort of huge in the whole Vampire Survivors genre thing right now.
Yeah.
But the problem is kind of inherent in a game like that, is that it is almost entirely extrinsic motivation, right? Yeah. Everything, like, because the intrinsic motivation is not there. The game isn't particularly fun or engaging to play on its own. You move your character around a map and avoid things. Like, it's the most basic type of game. But all of the extra stuff that gets added on top makes it really, really engaging. Like,
how engaging would you say, Sean? Would you say engaging enough to lose an entire day to?
yeah, a day, 50 hours. I think it looks like they've got some of that stuff in there, and I think the nice thing about that game is that there's some physics stuff involved. Yeah. It just looks like it's a bit more like engaging from a gameplay point of view. So any of that other stuff on top would be good.
It felt good just to like watch it.
Yeah.
So I was like, I gotta imagine playing it. It feels pretty good. So that's something I'm definitely going to be trying out. I don't remember if it's already if there's a demo out, but if there is, I'm definitely going to try it. If not, I'm definitely keeping my eye on it. There was some interesting kind of more horror focused stuff. Like there was a Canine, where I wasn't totally sold on it, but there was like this idea that like I think a child trying to find their dog or something, and there's some kind of weird fucked up thing chasing you. Maybe the dog is the evil thing, I don't know, but they mentioned how like all you really have to defend yourself is like a ball, and they show the player, and it's all first person, throwing this ball, and it's got like physics on it and stuff, and I'm just like, how far do they take that? Like, do you distract the monster with the ball, and then you need to retrieve the ball? Like, is there a way to get the ball back without having to like walk up to it and pick it up? Like, I feel like these are fair questions. When you tell me all I get is a ball, I'm like, well, what can I do with that ball? What's up? What's going on with the ball? And it's like, you got me interested, but it's like a skeptical kind of interest. I'm like, you gotta sell me on this. There was I believe Techno Delirium looked really interesting. It's like, it looked like kind of a point and click game with I'm not really sure what the hell the premise is, but like, clearly not a normal world. Like, there's like, looks like the characters might be robots or corpses who are falling apart.
Yeah,
it seems like you're swapping between, I don't know if it's timelines or dimensions or what. There's like a moment where a guy is like, oh hey, you got me my legs back. The really harsh lighting, it looks like you're almost like I don't know if you're on a train or what.
Yeah.
But like lots of windows and very harsh lighting coming through it. Very interesting. Definitely going to be keeping an eye out for that.
Yeah, it was one of many of the games that looked inspired by sort of, I can't remember the name of the developer now, but the developer that made a game called Moon. It got re-released recently, and not the Moon, the first-person horror game. Moon, the weird Japanese, like, sort of bizarre culture game. I don't even know what you call it. I can't remember the name of the company now, but they made Incredible Crisis as well. Very odd, very obscure. No one would have played these games at the time, really, especially in the West. It seems like that sort of vibe has got into everything, even like that LSD game on the PlayStation. Just these very obscure, old Japanese games seem to have inspired a hell of a lot of people at this conference.
Yeah, but I think it's a good thing. We're getting things that are interesting. They're totally. Very strange. Yeah, I don't know if I want to keep going down the list. We've already kind of covered quite a few. I'll just get one last one out of the way. Is Loretta, which was I think it's all sprite based, but it's like the art is definitely going for something like more serious.
That looked quite cool.
Trailer was definitely angling at something pretty creepy. Like, if that trailer was for a movie, I would probably be interested. So I'm curious how this will play out.
Yeah, I instantly thought, like, scratching that itch, that Coen Brothers style itch,
Yeah, exactly.
So why isn't this stuff in games much? Because it's hard to do and it's not gameplay, I suppose. Yeah, I was quite interested by that one as well.
Yeah, and the big one, which we've saved, I guess, I don't know if I want to say the best, but the one I'm the most interested in for last, and I think it's the most, like, full-fledged product here, so like I'm not gonna hold the other ones like against it, is Signalis, which is it's my beloved. That this game, since like day one, has had my interest, and I've played the demo on Steam. I've been following everything. I've kind of stopped watching the trailers because I don't want to get spoiled on too much. I am so ready for this game. I don't know if I can properly put it in words how ready I am for this game. I don't know if you want to like kind of get your thoughts out on it first, because I'm probably going to ramble really bad on this game.
It seems to be taking references from references I really like. I mean, really like, and things that haven't really been used a ton. It's clearly Ava inspiration there. There's obviously Ghost in the Shell stuff, even down to sort of a scene that is probably rotoscoped from that. It's clearly using the right influences for me to be interested, so that's got me. And the perspective's cool. It's different, right? It's not another first-person thing, although first-person's still my favourite perspective. Like I said, there's a lot of PT-style things. It's interesting to see something that isn't that. Yeah, I'm interested. I'll definitely be picking that up. Definitely.
Yeah, you bring up references, and I think that's a good point. I think what makes Silent Hill so fascinating is it's like, this very unique perspective on like Western media with like a Japanese lens on it, right?
Yep.
Where they're taking from like kind of very Lynchian stuff. They're taking from stuff like Jacob's Ladder. Like they were very inspired by a lot of these movies about like characters getting their head fucked with. And then they had like a really specific sound they were going for that was very inspired by like David Lynch films. And, just like a lot of stuff came together to make something really interesting. It's kind of the same way with like Star Wars. It's that weird mix of influences. And I think the problem with like the Silent Hill games made by the not original people, I'm sure there's a better way to say that sentence, but we're moving forward, is they reference Silent Hill. They're not like getting new references for like, oh, this is what's like inspiring how we're doing this presentation. They're just sort of like, well, we're doing Silent Hill and we're doing a more modern Silent Hill. And we keep getting these rumblings that there might be a Silent Hill game in development, and I don't know why I would be interested in it. It's just like you put a name on something and people get excited. But I'm telling you, if you really want more Silent Hill, Signalis is what you actually want.
Yeah.
Because Signalis is this game where it's like, it's definitely survival horror with real survival horror elements, but it's definitely a little bit less hardcore than like a Resident Evil, at least from what I've played, which is very Silent Hill. Silent Hill, it's, if you fuck around, you can die, but, it's meant to be a little bit easier to get around, a little bit easier to, run past enemies, all that stuff.
Yeah, you only get challenged on bosses, really, right?
Yeah, the vibe is very, very unique, and the visual presentation is really not quite like anything else I've seen, where it's like, it's PlayStation 1-esque, but definitely not in a way that the PlayStation 1 ever would have pulled off. It's almost like an in-between. It's like, PlayStation 2 games would have looked better, like higher res assets and stuff, but they they were presenting things in a different way as well.
It reminded me a bit of like Galerians and Fear Effect as well from the PS1.
Right.
A lot of Fear Effect, actually.
Yeah. Really cool blending of how they present their 3D stuff, where it's like there's kind of the usual gameplay angle where it's like isometric and then it'll zoom in for certain assets or for like certain story beats, and it makes you really like immersed in the location you're in. And I love how weird and mysterious this like world is, and it's like not just like the situation the character's in, but it's like they've crafted like this strange kind of Eastern European, I forget, they had a term for it, where it's like it's not exactly just cyberpunk. It's like there's something else, you know, kind of go like Soviet cyberpunk. It's very strange. I'm over the moon over this game. If it somehow ends up being really bad, just know I'm really depressed and in my room sad about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a lock for me. Like there's a 0% chance I'm not pre-ordering this game and playing it like the instant it's out. Yeah, if by some miracle the people who are working on this game actually listen to this podcast, just know that I love you. I need you to keep making these experiences. Please, I'm begging you.
For me, the easiest way to work out whether or not I really love something is whether or not I wish I was making it myself. And I wish I was making that. I wish I was involved in it somehow.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would say, I guess like one big hope I have for this game, so I stop like fanboying out and get more into the game developer side, is I think there's what I really love about Old Silent Hill is the games, and this was just like a tone back in the day. Games were a little bit more okay with like the abstract game nature being what you experience moment to moment, and like the reality of the cutscenes being like decently divorced from that. And I probably even brought this up in like a prior episode.
Yeah.
But like there's definitely like a feeling when it's like a thing is happening to you in the game and the game's not giving you any kind of special prompt. It's not telling you to press a button to make an animation happen. Your character isn't talking out loud, and it's just you yourself are experiencing it and dealing with it. Even if it's just a little scripted moment. And I feel like modern games just like don't let that happen. It's like, no, we gotta have a moment where your character, like, oh, you're trapped in a room, your character has to like go to the door and bang on it and be like, oh, let me out. It's like, let the player do that. And I really hope this game does that. I really hope the game has those moments where it's like something is weird or not right, and it has the confidence to just keep you in control of that moment. If they can do that, it's everything I need. It's everything I need.
Yeah.
Sean with no comment, leaving me out to dry there.
Well, I agree.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's just, it's what we need from games, I think. I think we need games to stop being embarrassed about themselves. And that's something I kind of feel happened in the last generation, where it's like, games really, they want to look like a movie as much as possible. And I don't just mean like cinematic or linear, but I mean like, they always want the cleanest animations to be playing. They always want like the most appropriate like character model responses. They refuse to let like a character move better at the sake of visual quality. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's like, I guarantee you, like the way God of War plays now is because it's easier to have a serious looking game when you're not like double jumping and, you know, doing all that other goofy, you know, original God of War stuff. And it's like, no, give me the goofiness back. I want to see my ammo on the ground floating around in a circle like it does in Metal Gear Solid 1. I want to see little, you know, pop-ups appear on screen that just seem to like exist in the game. I want to hear a character say the word action button. Like, just let games be what they are, and not even like a cute meta way. Just let them be a game. It's what I need. Just let me have my games that are games. And I think we can probably close on that.
Yeah.
EEK3 forever. Gamescom can get bent, I guess. Yeah. Peace, everybody.